Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Dave Leopold. I'm from LucidLink, and I'm here joined with several of my good friends. I have Stephen Nijelski, also my LucidLink colleague. We have Jane Sung from Cinedeck, and of course, Ben Kilberg from CHESA. And today I'm really excited because we're getting to talk to you about two technologies that are amazing on their own, but when you combine them, they really do some mind-blowing things. A little bit of background on me. I've been a television editor for 20 years, a little more. A lot of that time I spent at Viacom, working across some of the biggest brands, shows that you've seen. And so I've played really every role across post-production. And one of the biggest problems that I've run into over the years has been the idea that I do my full edit, I do my creative work, and then there's a lot of technical things that have to happen afterwards. And there are a lot of technical sort of time sucks. And one of the big ones is if I find a little error or someone else finds a little error, now that we're tapeless and we're dealing with files, everything's digital, a small little change, no matter how tiny, is going to require me to not only re-export the entire file, but also to redeliver. And so as an example, there was a show that I worked on. It was a concert series. I was doing hour-long episodes, so 44 minutes. And there were some colors that were not within broadcast legal. And I sent off for QC. I did my edit. I sent off for QC, and the next day it got flagged and came back to me and said, oh, there's one shot where the colors are a little bit outside of range. Can you correct that and redeliver? So I re-exported. It was probably an hour and a half long export. I then re-uploaded to my delivery site. And the next day I got a note from QC. Oh, we found another shot that has an issue. Well, I had to do this 6 times, and it ended up taking me almost 2 weeks just to deliver this one episode. Now, fortunately, I was working far enough ahead that I wasn't up against a deadline and we would have had a real issue. But 2 weeks of my time of re-exporting and redelivering is not a good use of time. So now fast forward a little bit into, we're now living in the future. And we have two technologies that are just really mind-blowing and have addressed this problem so much so that you're not just saving time, you're reclaiming that time. All those minutes or hours or days are now time that you're going to spend working on the things that you should be working on instead of the technical side. So I'm going to take a pause here and let's just learn a little bit more about what these technologies are. And then we'll get into a demo of how they work together. But I'm really excited about this. This is incredibly cool. It's probably one of the coolest things you're going to see in a long time. So I'm going to send over to Stephen to walk us through LucidLink a little bit, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Dave. So LucidLink Filespaces are an incredible collaboration tool that allow you to work from the single source of truth with a single set of media from anywhere in the world. And the way that works is we use cloud storage as the backend, but we present the interface to every user at the operating system level. So if you're on Mac OS, it's going to just look like Finder. If you're on Windows, it's going to be File Explorer. It'll show up as the L drive. And so each user sees this mounted on their local system. They interact with it the way they always do with any application, but yet it's all synchronized to the same source of truth so that it's just like you're working collaboratively, like on a multi-user networked environment on-prem, but you could be anywhere in the world. So it's really incredible, and you'll get to see it in action here today.
Great. Well, so we're going to show you the LucidLink in conjunction with CineXtools, which is a really awesome little program that our friends over at Cinedeck have put together to make our lives a whole lot better and hopefully make our fixes for spitting out finished files a whole lot faster. So Jane, why don't you show us what's going on a little bit?
Sure. I'll explain a little bit about CineXtools. So CineXtools is a mastering and finishing tool. It has things like being able to insert edit video, audio, captions, metadata, any little thing at the end of the file where you're just like, ooh, I miss that, and I have to export that thing again. Those are the things that we really excel at. So in the demo, what you'll see is some mistake that was made in a file, and then you'll see that it's going to update that file like almost instantly. CineXtools runs on PC and Mac. So, you know, it doesn't really matter. It's a standalone application. So, and it just views the LucidLink file space as just like another file space. That's it. It's super simple to use, and in conjunction, it's like when I first saw it together, like my jaw dropped, because I was like, this is exactly what everybody has been kind of harassing us at Cinedeck for, and we just didn't have, we're not in that space. We're in the space of correcting files. We're not in the space of delivering files or, making a platform that makes that so easy and accessible. So together, like Steve said, it's sort of a magical combination, because it literally lets you update those files that you already delivered. When I set up the demo, I literally just sort of saved my delivery file to the same file space, and we all have access to that same file. So we can all be collaborating and working together on it, because it's still that same file. So I'm gonna throw it back to you, Dave, and then I'll do my little insert, and then we'll go ahead and take a look.
Great. Thank you, Jane. All right, so I'm going to share my screen, and this is just very simple. I have my LucidLink file space, which mounts as though it is a local volume. So it's called demo here, and inside my Cinedeck August 9th, I have this one file called HD_target. Now, one thing to note is this looks like it's mounted locally. This file does not live on my system. This file is in object storage in the cloud, but it will play and behave as though it is local. So I can drag it into Premiere Pro or Media Composer. I can open it in QuickTime, or what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit spacebar and preview it right from my desktop. Now, this is, in theory, this is the delivery master. Maybe Jane has uploaded it to the file space. So that's where it lives. We're all accessing the same file. I take a look just to do a quick spot check, make sure everything looks good. Okay, this shot's great. But Ben's last name is Kilberg.
I was having some fun with his last name.
Not Ben Kilberg with one stone. Right. So small little typos that you might not have noticed otherwise.
Right.
Or, as the case may be, sometimes editors like to have a little fun and something may accidentally get left in there. So I immediately get on the phone or Slack Jane and say, hey, we have an issue. Can you please correct this lower third? Now, what I'm going to do, Jane is about to do an insert edit using CineX insert to correct this. Again, she's only going to be correcting the small portion of this video that needs the correction, not a full export. While she's doing that, I'm simply going to be clicking back to the beginning of this so that we can see it continuously play, and you can see in real time when this update happens.
And I literally just pressed insert, so there it is.
Oh. And already it's changed. Well, we have.
And it's just
Here we
taking
go.
some time. I'm on my home internet. But imagine this, like we are literally changing the file delivery as we speak. I am using CineXtools on my desktop computer, nothing fancy. i5 CPUs, okay, desktop CPUs, and I'm accessing the file in the cloud on the LucidLink storage space and updating just the change I need to make. Like literally within
and Jane,
the
where are you?
I'm in
Where
New
are
Jersey.
you accessing from?
Yeah, I'm in New Jersey.
That's a good point.
Right.
Jane is in New Jersey. I'm in San Diego.
Right.
Stephen?
I'm in Arizona.
And Ben?
I'm in Baltimore.
Right.
So none of us are anywhere even remotely close to anyone else, but we're all accessing the same file and working in real time with each other. So I will actually stop sharing my screen there. And yeah, so one of the things that I really love about this is, again, CineX insert blew my mind the first time I saw it. I said, why couldn't we have had this 10 years ago? Because it's so clear as to what a time saver it is. But when we combine it with LucidLink and put things in a LucidLink file space, you've saved the upload time, the download time on the other end, and it allows us to literally work from anywhere. So we've all had the scenario where it's, 6 p.m., 7 p.m. on a Friday, and there's a last minute change that comes in, and oh no, I can't leave the office. But there's also been times that I've had where it's a weekend and something gets flagged. I might not be working on the weekend, but somebody in the office is, and someone notices a typo, notices a QC error, maybe a logo needs to be blurred. And that used to require me to go into the office, make that change, and redeliver. Now I can just open up my laptop at home, make that small change. It's not processor intensive. It won't take long to do. And again, because I don't need to re-upload the whole file, all we're sending up to your LucidLink file space are just the changes that have been made. That means that I can even run it from my home Wi-Fi and have the correction there within minutes. So it's pretty amazing.
Why don't we do this one more time, and maybe this time, David, you can take your shot at directing, and Jane, why don't you show us a good walkthrough? Because I think Shaheen, if I'm saying your name correct, was asking whether or not you're making the change in the editing software. So I think that is
yes,
what we want to see. So first,
So okay, so let me share my screen.
And it's one Alan Kilberg, even though, Kill, cool.
Sorry, I got it wrong again. So imagine it's just a bad scenario for an editor to get it wrong a second time.
Well, but that's
a use case.
That's how we get file names that are like the title of this talk.
Right.
I always joke that my children are named Child 1 and Child 1 Revised Final.
Right.
No, this is the world we live in. It's the kiss of death to call something final, because you are guaranteed to be making one change after another
You've just jinxed yourself. Now you're going to be in the office for the next 10 hours trying to deliver that file.
Even before this, you made the change quickly in Premiere, right?
Oh, I did, yes. So what I did was I literally, here's my, you know what? I'm hopping around and I'm not showing you my screen. I'm just going to share my whole screen. Right. So here's what I did. I literally just typed in Dave Leopold. I could literally type in Shaheen. I hope I spelled that right. And I can Control M. And I know that the time codes are this.
Gotcha. So,
so I'm just exporting just a little piece that I need to update, right? Do that live. Oh, export. Yes, that's okay. So it's just exporting out that little piece. Bear with me. It's going to be pretty quick, or maybe not, because I have an i5 desktop. Gotta get a new computer.
That still goes quickly.
Right. It's better than the whole file, right?
It is. Even though it's 5 minutes, it's totally better than the whole file. Exactly. Yeah. That's a good point. Okay, here we go. Now that's going to be available in my folder here. And let me just pop up CineXtools. I'm just going to drag and drop that in. Yes, right? Now, because I know that the time code is exactly the same now, if you're an editor, you're like, you live and die by your time codes. I knew what that was. I can just do a little 3-point edit by copying over my in and out points, because this is the part that I want to replace. If I wanted to preview that insert, I can. So that's what it would look like. Good, I'm happy with that. And then I'm going to insert. Now, when I press insert, it's inserting to the file in the LucidLink file space. So literally, Dave can open up that file. And then I'm going to stop sharing. And I stop sharing so you can show it in your, show that file again.
And here we are.
Yep, there it is. It's so simple.
Yep.
Yeah.
And one thing I do want to mention too is that because you're not exporting the entire file again, not only are you saving time, but storage is not an issue. I've had it, sometimes we're dealing with files that are 80, 90, 100 gigs in size or more.
Yep.
And I've had exports that are going and I get the little error, out of space. What do you do then? You have to start the whole thing. First, you need to clear out some more space, but then you need to start the whole export again. So now you're only exporting a small little piece, and you can even export that directly into your LucidLink file space, which has really an unlimited amount of space.
Yep.
Right. So there was a question about Avid and Bin Locking. We're really working with finished flat files. So we're not really working in the timeline, right? Like in the NLE timeline, we're working with the file that you would have already delivered. So let's say you exported an XDCAM file or a ProRes file and you've delivered it with LucidLink. That's the file that we're working with. And I know that it's kind of like mind blowing. You're like, wait, what are you doing? Are you like, and then like you export, and no, we're not. We're like literally just making the little change. We're not even unwrapping or rewrapping it again. We're literally just going in there, making the change between the time code in and out points. And then LucidLink is picking up that change and updating the file in their file space. It's kind of incredible.
So I would chime in quickly there too and say that independent of NLE, right? No problem, because CineXtools supports DNX HD both with OP Atom MXF and OP1A MXF. So DNX HD is a fully supported codec, so you can export from Media Composer without issue. And then the trick would be for mounting it, depending upon where you are. If you were from home, you could just mount the LucidLink file space, but you could only have one person looking at the LucidLink file space with Media Composer because of the Avid media files folder. You don't want to have too many people looking at that at the same time. Anyway, yes, it will work, Alan.
Yeah. Right. And another workflow that comes to mind with regard to collaboration and file delivery is if you are a post house, or it doesn't matter. If you're delivering a file, typically, especially in the reality show space, you're going to have locked your picture a long time ago. So you would have QC'd that video a long time ago, and you're like, great, I'm going to keep my QC'd video file live in my NLE until I get the sweetened audio tracks. And those sweetened audio tracks, you send them to the post facility, audio post house. They come back, and like literally, it's at like 5 p.m. on Friday, and you're like, oh, great, now I have to like put these into my NLE and export the whole file again, right? That's like a normal thing that happens all the time. So what's cool about LucidLink and CineXtools together is that you can literally have delivered your locked video master, right, already with the empty audio tracks, and then use CineXtools to insert those audio tracks to the file that's already in the LucidLink file space. So when someone says, have you delivered that file? You could be like, yeah, just give me 5 minutes to insert these audio stems, and then it's there. Then that's your master file. Now it's ready to go.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the things that I really love about LucidLink is it enables what I like to refer to as nonlinear collaboration. So the idea that we're no longer confined to the processes and sort of order the steps that we take. So you can have people working concurrently on the same job, doing their own parts, and it can come together later, as opposed to one person does their part, passes it along to the next, more assembly line
Right.
structure. So we now have that freedom, that flexibility, and we can really make use of every minute of time that we have before the deadline.
And here's another, I remember a long time ago, we were working with a post facility, and this sort of reminds me a lot about what their workflow was. And I'm sure you would agree, Dave, a long time ago, people would use DPX as their MES format. Like everything in the post facility has to be transcoded to DPX. And it's like, oh my gosh, so much data that you have to like push and pull and like, wow, just a lot. And I remember when CineXtools came out, there was an editor that we work with, Mike Nugget, and he was like, can I just like use my ProRes file as my MES? And I'm like, yes, you can. So it sort of reminds me of that. But now with the LucidLink sort of, combination here, we've taken it one step further, and like you could like already deliver your MES file and then like make changes on the fly. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's kind of amazing.
I think one of the things that always gets me about LucidLink is that compared with your typical cloud storage where you might have to download whole files or one object in object store equates to one file, one of the things that LucidLink does is it breaks up those objects into chunks, which as users of kind of traditional shared storage, that's what we're used to, right? When we hit play, it's going to do the thing and it's going to request the chunks that we want to see. So it's, as a user experience, it feels exactly kind of what you're expecting it to do, in that it just plays what you want when you want it, and you don't have to think about it so much.
I have a question. Can you access files in the LucidLink file space on sorry, I'm not a Mac person, but like a tablet, like a...
Oh, like an iPad?
Yeah, sorry. I don't know the words for that.
We don't currently have iOS or Android support. It used to be either Windows, Mac, or Linux, desktop type operating system environment.
Okay, cool.
And that really is in large part due to our security model. So when anything you put into a LucidLink file space, as Ben started to explain, it's broken into these little blocks, and the blocks are then encrypted, and then they're pushed into the file space, over parallel connections. And so the encryption happens in flight, it happens at rest in the cloud, it happens in flight back to the end user, and it's only decrypted at the point where their application is requested, those blocks. And so it's an extremely secure model, and so only people who are in the file space have the ability to decrypt anything.
I'm just thinking about a workflow, and that's really good to know that it's so secure. Someone wanted to know whether it was a standalone software plugin. It's both. We have a plugin, and we also have standalone software, and you can buy it all as a bundle so that you can have all of it, whether you're working on Resolve, Premiere, Media Composer. We have plugins for all of those, NLEs, and then we also have the standalone software. But I just going back to that collaboration workflow, because it's secure, it means that you can have these review processes remotely and live. Like if I had a shot and the exec's like, well, for this scene, can you make it, just some of the comments that I've heard from editors is really funny. They're like, can you make it like that Instagram blue? And the editor's like, oh, like, they have to like sort of match the Instagram blue filter. And, they'll traditionally that review process, right, is like you have someone like you're sitting in your editing room and maybe the producer is like in the same post facility in a screening room. But guess what? That whole paradigm is gone now, right? It's like post-pandemic, like nobody, like very few people work like that anymore. So I could literally go back to my NLE, go back to Premiere, layer in, the filter or After, I don't know. I'm not an editor, so I don't know which program exactly you would use, but export that little piece, right? Insert it, and literally your producer, your exec, doesn't even have to reopen the file again. They could just scrub back and forth and be like, oh yeah, there's that scene. Yeah, no, change it back. Right. You can go back and change it back. No, I don't like that blue filter anymore. Change it back. Okay. So you can do that instantly.
Yeah, and what you bring up is a really great point, because the producer at that point who's doing the review is looking at the actual master file. They're not looking at an H.264 encoded, web version that got posted to a collaboration site or something. They can look at the actual master, the same one you just made the change to seconds later. So it's that real time. We call it a single source of truth. Real time collaboration with the actual same exact blocks of data. Right. So it's pretty revolutionary.
And also, a producer is not. They don't have to open up a shared project file and try and navigate through a timeline, because not everyone is comfortable with that, and NLEs can be pretty intimidating to people who are not behind the wheel every day.
Yeah.
So
I was actually using a PC to do the insert edit. You're on a Mac, right, Dave?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you were just reviewing the file on a Mac, and I think the file I delivered was a ProRes LT, but guess what? It could be a ProRes 4x4 file. Doesn't matter. It could be a ProRes XQ file. It could be a ProRes UHD file. It literally does not matter. And if the producer is like, yes, like that, I want to see the file that we're delivering, you could show them that. It's extremely easy. It's not a copy. It's like the file.
Yeah. Drew has a question there in the chat. So it would be the same exact, data. It's not, we don't generate proxies in the LucidLink environment. You can create your own proxies, of course, and put them in there, because any file of any kind works. But what we were talking about, the difference is, instead of like exporting a 60 gig master, uploading that, and then the producer has to download a 60 gig master before they can even look at a single frame, the LucidLink environment allows that block level access. So the producer just goes to the point, they jump to 3/4 of the way into the video, that's an hour long, they hit play, and maybe they don't have the bandwidth to play ProRes LT for a whole hour long straight, but all they have to do is play that little bit, and if they struggle, they start playing a little bit, it'll come in, it'll load, because we're accessing just the tiny bit that they need. And so it's just a much lighter requirement for them on the viewing end.
Yeah, it's worth noting too that LucidLink caches blocks that it's already egressed from the cloud. So if you've played those portions of the file already, you essentially set a portion of the underlying hard disk or SSD that you have on your laptop or whatever you're using to view things with at home. And so you're not constantly egressing those blocks again, and those blocks play a lot faster. Not that egress is an issue with the enterprise file space, because there is no egress feed. So yay.
Dave, because you were an editor, are there any more stories you could share, like where you think that maybe this would have been like a great fit for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different applications for this, but when I think of all the experiences I've had where I've lost significant time, where this could have come in really handy, one of the other stories that comes to mind is we had a series, multiple seasons, a lot of episodes per season, and the theme song was a major label song. And about 8 or 9 years after it first aired, we decided not to renew the license on that song, and we had to swap out the theme music for another track. Well, there were probably 80 to 100 episodes that this had to happen on. And all I was doing was swapping 30 seconds, the same 30 seconds from every single episode. This took me weeks between not just not just the quick fix of the edit and the export and the long export and the redelivery, but also keep in mind, if I had had everything in a LucidLink file space to begin with, I wouldn't have had to wait days to request and get all those files, all those episodes to begin with. So really, between these two technologies, we allow you to just get straight to work, do the change that you need to make, and your job is done. It's on to the next part.
I have a quick question. If you have, like, let's say you're a media company and you have all of your files in cold storage, right? Like in Glacial or whatever. Is it possible to move it to LucidLink, do the insert and move it back, or what? Would that be possible?
Yeah, but you'd need to have another data mover that was watching the LucidLink file space, right? Something like a media asset management platform that would both mount the LucidLink file space and also have access to something like AWS Glacier Deep Archive, like you're talking about.
Right. So you would have to talk to CHESA for that.
Right. We do that sort of thing. So,
right.
if you've got some more concerns, we can talk about that.
Right. Yeah, but that's cool because I'm sure that there are media companies who do have that exact problem, Dave, you're describing, where they're like, do we like download it all and then export it? And then like, whoa, that's a lot of work and a lot of time.
Right.
So obviously CHESA is the right place to talk to about, organizing, orchestrating all that kind of stuff.
For sure.
Cool.
And I'm sure, Dave, at that point, you're questioning why you're doing these things with your life after doing the rote work of
exactly
one song and hundreds of files.
Well, but the other part too is that wasn't the only assignment I had.
Yeah,
I was editing 2 other pieces. I was supervising on another show, and this was just something else that got added to my plate. Hey, Dave, all we need to do is swap out these 30 seconds for the series. Can you take care of that? Well, I didn't really have the option to say yes or no. I had to say yes, but I had to get a second computer, and I was running that round the clock while I was working on other things.
Got it.
But that didn't mean that I still had to check in on it, make sure it was happening. Exports don't always go smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
There's always storage issues, all these things. And my God, if I had all these things at my disposal, I would have been much happier back then.
Right.
So this is actually a good time to give the audience a link to a survey. It's not a survey, sorry. It's just like a form. If you're interested in getting a CineXtools and LucidLink trial, you can get that through CHESA. And because you're working with CHESA, you're going to be getting a 1-month free trial. Typically on the Cinedeck website, you only get a week. So let me just post that to the group. So yes, there is yep, it's all done. And then, let's see. Oh, what I wanted to ask was, in the audience, if anybody wants to, if you have a problem, you're like, oh, would that work with CineXtools and LucidLink? This is your chance to ask us. We're happy to answer any questions that you might have. So if you have some workflow issue that you're trying to solve, where you think that this might be a good fit, ask us. Let's see. We can sort of hash it out. So I invite you to comment and challenge us with difficult stuff.
That's right. Let's see.
Oh, we lost Jane.
I was just going to ask her a question.
Oh, no. She can tell.
Yeah, I think I'm going to get out of here ahead of time. Well, the thing I was going to bring up is I don't think we mentioned metadata insert editing as well. That's another thing that is possible through CineXtools and fully possible. Oh, she's back.
Sorry. I was like, challenge us with great stuff. And then I just left.
So I see this this question: is there a way to batch change music? That would be through your NLE, and I don't know of an automated tool that would necessarily do that for you. But with some of the new scripts and plugins and built-in automations, AI intelligence, I think we're probably not too far away from just being able to identify the same track and make that switch. But as it stands right now, no, it's still a manual
Is
process.
there, so like when you mean batch change, do you mean like changing out like the 30-second theme song that Dave was talking about, or are you talking about
Right.
changing out first 30?
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. There's actually a way in
Sure.
CineXtools to do a batch processing. So you could have one wave file or stereo pair, whatever, it doesn't really matter. It could be 8, 16, 32 wave files, just replacing the 30 seconds in multiple ways. So yes.
Right.
Yeah, super
Probably
easy.
as long as there wasn't any dialogue overlapping with it, I imagine.
Yeah, it would have to be like time code to time code, right? It would have to be pretty precise.
Right.
But I think with like an episodic show, it's more or less always the same time where they start and the same time that.
Well, the duration is always going to be the same, but I was working with a show that had a cold open, and that can vary.
Oh, true.
It's not always going to be the same time code, but if you're using CineXinsert for this, you only need to export your new version of the open with the new music once. You're not doing it per episode, and then you don't even need to do your work in Premiere or Media Composer, any NLE. All you're doing is just using CineXinsert at that point to mark the time code where you want it to start and stop in each episode. So it completely collapses the process down to a handful of steps instead of days worth of clicking through and finding the right time code and navigating different audio tracks. It's just straightforward and easy.
And just to Drew's question, we do have a product called CineX Meta, and that's all sort of part of the whole CineX package, right? It's a separate application, and it's really intended to update metadata. So like, let's see, do I have it up? Yes, I do. I'll just share my screen really quick. So it's intended to, like if you wanted to change a channel label, left, right, if you wanted to name the tracks, like maybe this track is French and this one is Spanish, and you have to like actually name them. If you needed to reorder the audio tracks, I think you would use CineXtools. Okay. It won't let me do that because this is I don't know why. Okay. Anyway, when you're able to update that, maybe it's this. Yes, it won't let me add. This is where I add the language tag. You could just commit the changes, and then that metadata has been written into the file. And again, it's the same thing. Like if you just needed to update the metadata of the file that you've already delivered, you can do that through here. And it's the same exact workflow.
Yeah, but that's a great point. I mean, we've been talking mostly about changing video, a little bit about audio, but the metadata too. You can remap your audio tracks. You can just going through all the different scenarios. It's technical fixes, broadcast legal, it's compliance, standards and practices, blurring logos or inappropriate things, which happens where you need to do new versions for localization. In different regions of the world, they have different standards and practices. I always like to talk about how many times have you misspelled the word Wednesday. It's the easiest word to misspell, and until recently, no NLE had a spell check. I think Premiere now does, which is great, but that doesn't help you with names, as we saw earlier. So it's all these different things where you don't even realize how many times you're re-exporting things for a tiny little change. And then you need to make sure that everyone gets that change. Everyone gets the same file. We're all working from the same version. And it just becomes a nightmare. It gets so muddy so quickly. So it's just pretty amazing to be able to do this in such a fast, efficient, straightforward way.
It's a Dolby Atmos question there.
Right, previous question.
Premiere doesn't do that output, and we have to go to other softwares.
I think she's talking about the Dolby Atmos.
Can you remap
remapping. Oh, okay.
Right.
I don't know, but I will get back to you. Yeah, I'll follow up with the LucidLink folks to see if I can get your information, and then I'll see. Hopefully I can get to you. And then there's a question about DPP templates for metadata for DPP files. Yeah, so CineXtools supports the whole DPP metadata stuff. If you're delivering files in the UK, that's just a standard that you have to use to deliver files. There's a lot of gotchas there, like, the BBC likes a / instead of a / for a name. And those are tiny, tiny little things that will really get you. Then you have to deliver. Are you kidding? You have to export the whole file because you use the / instead of a / That's just, no, thank you. So that's really what CineXtools was designed for. And as a matter of fact, I know we have to wrap up, but I'll just give a quick history. When we first came out with Insert Edit, somebody was like, well, you can't do that. And I think that this is sort of the spirit of Cinedeck, and probably a spirit of LucidLink as well. When someone says you can't do that, we're like, let's see if we can't do that. And then we'll have our engineers work on it, and then all of a sudden we can do that. And it's just like this thing that someone told you that you couldn't do. I'm sure the folks at LucidLink have a similar story where they were like, oh no, you can't do that. And I was like, well, actually, we can.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, and before LucidLink, everything when you think cloud collaboration, it was all about getting something from point A to point B. It's like, how do we just transport it from one user to another? What I like to say is, really, once you put something in a LucidLink file space, it's already everywhere. There's no more point B. You put it there, and everyone on your team is in point A. So it just allows you to get to work without having to worry about transporting things. So it's a game changer, and like we keep saying, you match that up with something like CineXtools, and you're saving a lot of time and suffering.
Yeah, and I really love sort of the philosophy, like the company philosophy behind can and can't here, right? Like, yeah, no, we actually can do that. We figured it out, and now you can have this amazing workflow that will get you not from point A to point B. You're just already at A. Like Stephen was saying.
Right.
I think that there's a slide that we wanted to share with you, just comparing the time savings. Does somebody have that?
Stephen, do you have that?
I think I have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rupert just says it's double magic. Each one of these really do feel like magic on their own.
Yeah.
And it's like you've learned how to do a really cool magic trick without having to practice. It's pretty mind blowing. But what I like to say is that the best way to really understand what this experience is to try it out for yourself. And I know Jane mentioned that there's that link to CHESA to get you up and running for a trial. I encourage everyone to test these both out. We have free trials for LucidLink Filespace too, and we work across platforms, Mac, Windows, and Linux. So your whole team, no matter what they're doing, can get up and running. And I encourage people just to play and have fun. I still smile when I see these things happening. I get excited by it.
Yeah, and my favorite thing is like when I show this to people, I'm like, hey, you want to see something cool? I feel like I'm in the schoolyard. I'm like, let me show you something really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing I really like about it too is that it feels like a collaborative workflow that you're used to in a shared editorial environment, right? You're all looking at the same file system. Some of the same rules apply where if you're both, maybe you're editing collaboratively, maybe you're using like Adobe Teams, like team projects. And the same rules apply where whoever saves last wins. So just be aware that, they have good, the software has good, prevention for corruption and collisions built into it. It's a very well designed platform, which we like a lot.
Yeah, so just to take you guys through this last slide, we just basically looked at like a hypothetical 1 hour show, right? So this is just, and Julie, sorry, Julie, to call you out, but Julie made the slide and she actually made a really good point. This is for one correction. So it's like a 1 hour show, you export, someone's like, hey, there's something wrong in there. Well, then you have to export it again and re-upload it, right? And that's just one time. So it's going to take you 82 minutes for one correction. Now, Dave was saying earlier that he had a show that took him 2 weeks to deliver because every day he would come back and there'd be like something else that was wrong with it. So imagine doing this. I mean, actually, Dave did do it. It took him 2 weeks to deliver a file. But it's 82 minutes versus 6 minutes. I mean, and that's being very generous with the amount of time it takes, right? Because you guys saw that I replaced a 20-second scene in LucidLink, and it literally took, I don't know, like 30 seconds. And I sometimes have to put these minutes in there because if I put 30 seconds, people start to not believe you. So I just have to like pat it and be like, oh, it takes longer, but it actually doesn't. It literally only takes 30 seconds. And I think you guys saw that for yourself in our demo.
Right. And something that I also recently did was I just Googled slow export, and I got message board after message board after message board of people asking, why is my export taking so long? I have a 10-minute video and I'm on hour 2. All these things where the numbers that you're seeing here, this 82 minutes, yes, that's an estimate, but that's an estimate if everything goes smoothly. There's always a hiccup. And the less time you have, the closer you are to deadline, the more hiccups there are, just Murphy's Law. And so this will hopefully just get you completely around those issues.
Yeah, we were just chatting about that, Dave, right? Like, what if you have like a show with like 30 layers? That's not really uncommon. It's really not. You have like tons of layers on, whether it's color or an effect or whatever.
Right.
It's going to take you even longer to export your file. So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're about at time. I wanted to thank you all for joining us today. Hopefully you enjoyed what you saw. Please take a look at that link that we posted in the chat that will get you to CHESA, and they can help get you running with a LucidLink trial and a CineXtools trial. And we encourage you to try this for yourself, see how it works. Hold on to your socks so they don't get blown off, but it really is fun. Enjoy your time doing it, and please reach out and let us know how the experience goes, because we always like to hear these stories. But that's it. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys.